Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello friends and welcome to a recommendation video, but this one is going to be kind of different in a little ways because it's not just going to be recommendations, it's going to be actually author recommendations, as you can tell by the title. This is going to be authors with bingeable backlists. And as a little subtitle here, authors that are still currently publishing, right? Because there are, particularly with historical romance authors, a whole bunch that have huge backlists, but either haven't put a book out in ages, or we don't know if they still have books coming out, or this, that, or the other. So all of these authors I'm going to share as of now are all still currently publishing, but maybe you don't know that an author you love has such a big backlist. Maybe you don't look into that stuff. Or maybe you're really overwhelmed by it. So these are not going to be deep dives on these authors though. You know, I'm not going to go through every single book or tell you. I'm going to tell you kind of what the overall, like how many they have, what those series kind of are. And then because they are all authors that I love, I'll tell you like two of my favorites by them. But really this is just kind of to maybe open your eyes of, you know, we're going into the winter months here in the US, and if you have some time to binge a backlist, maybe you'll want to do that for some of these authors. So I don't know, this will possibly maybe be a series that I do as well, since I have 11, 12 authors on this list across like all subgenres. So you know, I'd be happy to make another one of these. Maybe it's even focused on a certain subgenre. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, whatever. But for now, like I said, I have it kind of spread out across the board. And the way I think it worked out is that all of these authors, I think the lowest number, let me just double check. I think the lowest number one of the authors has is like 27. So all of these authors have 27 or more books under multiple pen names added together. That is also a caveat. But the most some have is over 50. So you really have, or no, there's one that's over 100 even. So we definitely have a range to go over. So before I get too close into this, I want to put out there that this video topic was actually chosen by my channel members. It was really bad. I forgot to do this in October. October, literally, I don't know what happened. I blinked out of existence for a while. But one of the benefits for my channel memberships is they get to vote on a video topic every month. There also are some other fun polls I do for my fated friends. I do have a live chat every month where I just hang out with a few of them and we talk about some behind the scene things, some tea time, all that jazz. So those are all things that are provided for my channel members, and they actually voted on this topic. But what's even more fun as well is that just for fun, I also put a poll up on my Patreon because I did have quite a few video ideas I'm working on. I just wanted to see, you know, if there was another one of these videos that Patreon would want to see. And both sections voted for this. Now, there is also the thing that there is a lot of crossover between my channel members and my patrons. Some people are crazy wonderful and they support me in both places. So, you know, there's probably a good bit of double dipping, which is totally fine. But those other video topics, if you check out my Patreon, I do have that as a public post. And you can see what those other video topics are. I am planning to make those video topics as well. They're all ones that I'm workshopping, as it were, right now. But for today, my channel members sponsored this video, and let's go ahead and get into it. So I will be using my laptop for this, and I also have a lot of the books all stacked around me. Because like I said, I'm not going to show every single book by the author. I'm just going to talk about in general what type of subgenre or tropes they write a lot of, tell you a couple of my favorites. I'll have links down below to them where you can start checking them out and buy some of their books. But let's go ahead and dive in. And one of the first authors I have at the top here is actually Michelle Hurd, who this is an author myself who I would say I've only read maybe, I should have done these percentages ahead of time because some of the authors I've read their entire backlist. There's a couple of these authors, just a few. But some of them I've only read a couple. And with Michelle Hurd, honestly, I could even count right now. I've read 3, 8, 13, plus 10 more. So I've read 18 out of her over 50 books, okay? So I also wanted to mention Michelle Hurd because in my video recommendation form, which, by the way, that is always linked down below. You can check that out sometime if there's a video request you have. Someone asked me to do a deep dive on Michelle Hurd's Mafia world. And while I greatly appreciate you asking that of me, there's just no way that I have the time to do that anymore. And I just could not. But I'll tell you the series that I've read of hers, and we'll go over a little bit here. So it looks like the very first book that Michelle Hurd did, which, by the way, this is a South African author. Michelle Hurd lives there. She writes, from what I can tell, pretty much exclusively dark romance. She did have a stint where she wrote a romantasy, which I still haven't read yet. I really do want to try that one. And she has done a few collabs with other authors. She's collabed with Taylor Louise and with a few other authors in like anthologies. But for the most part, these are all her. And her first book was back in what appears to be 2016. And it was called Beautifully Broken, aka Predator at the time, which looks to be a pretty like angsty one. And then she went into there's lots of man chest covers in here. And then she started going into dark romance, and then finally into Mafia Romance is where she got into here. So the first book I ever read by her, I did actually read one that was a part of the Kings of the Underworld. I think it was Tears of Salvation was the one. But I didn't even like really register that that was Michelle Hurd when I read that one, because I was reading books by a lot of Mafia authors that I loved that was in that series. When I first really became aware with her was with her Sinner series. So I didn't realize that that was spinning off from so many of her previous books, because she has these books that connect with the, what is that series called? Where does it just say? But there's like this academy that her books connect with. And that is where like the Sinners and Saints books all connect with that, and the Corrupted Royals do too. And then Kings of the Mafia is what she wrote a series of, and that she's going to be going back to for a second generation. In fact, she just posted the breakdown of like who the children are belonging to and everything. And she also has the Mafia Empire series, which all came out this year. And I actually have not read them yet. I have The Hermit on my TBR to read by the end of the year. I have the audiobook for that one. So yeah, she writes a lot of Mafia, and it goes all the way back to the Beautifully Broken books. And then my favorites from her, which I actually don't own these ones anymore, was the Owned by a Sinner and Stolen by a Sinner are two of my faves from the Sinner series. In fact, I think it was Stolen by a Sinner that was a 6-star read for me. It's literally been a while. I think way back in 2022, that one was a fave of mine. And then most recently, I really enjoyed Tempted by the Devil in Kings of the Mafia, and then God of Vengeance. Those are two that I just absolutely loved. The audiobooks were amazing. And yeah, she did just announce the spin-off series, and Craving Revenge is actually coming December 8th, I think. So it's coming up in just about a month. And now that I'm caught up in that series and I know like who all the parents are, I may actually sign up for an arc of that one. Maybe. I don't know if I will. Maybe I don't need to take on any more arcs, but I'm ready for that series. So whether I do the arc or not, I will read that one. So anyway, that is Michelle Hurd. And like I said, I don't have any of hers to show off because I haven't bought any of those ones. But I'm a big fan. Okay, I'm a big fan of hers. So yeah, she has over almost 50, not over 50. She has almost 50 books that she's written, and you'd really have a good time binging. I believe hers are all on KU as well. So she doubles as that. Okay, next up, we have another author who became prolific very quickly, okay? And this is an author that I actually worked for a certain period of time, so I love bringing her up. It was not a bad experience at all. She was just going through some changes at the time I worked for her, and so I didn't end up staying working with her for very long, but it was a very good experience for sure. And that, of course, is Maggie Cole, who also has almost 50 books, and she has 3 upcoming books. She's also just about to get married, which is amazing, remarried, which is fantastic. When I first started interacting with her, she was just getting divorced. So that was also a crazy time for life to be happening. But her most recent release was her holiday book in the Cartwright family, Holiday Rider, which I believe is a cowboy romance, which is awesome. But the book, of course, that I fell in love with for her, as well as I know many people have, was with Ruthless Stranger, which she really pulled out all the stops to make this series absolutely blow up. And I think she did a fantastic job making that happen. And so Ruthless Stranger is the beginning, and this is a brought for romance. And she's actually one who kind of transitioned into Mafia. Like, her earliest books were like Badass Billionaire, and she began with the All In series back in 2019. And that started with The Rule. So that was her first one. So she pounded out those books, and I believe, from what I'm told by her, she had some books coming out like some every 2 weeks when she first started, which isn't that insane? She went through so many keyboards when she first started writing. Some of these authors who just jumped on it, like, it's just insane how much that they've done. So yeah, her series started out with All In series. Then there was the It's Complicated series, which has had a change in name a few times. The first book used to be called Crossing the Line, but now it's called My Boss the Billionaire. And she really is good at working her key search terms. Like, I'll be honest, authors who are good at doing that, it's fantastic when they hit it just right, you know? So there was the It's Complicated series, Together We Stand, Behind Closed Doors, and then, of course, the Mafia Wars came in 2021, and that entire series pretty much came out in 2021. Okay, all 10 books. Only one of them came out in the next year, which is insane, you guys. She just did not slow down. And so there was the Mafia Wars, and then the Mafia Wars New York. Then there was the Mafia Wars Ireland. She then put out a couple of duets. And then she currently is doing a second generation series that is just called Underworld. And the first 2 books in that series are out, and the next one is coming next year. So she has almost 50 books out as well. Which is just wild. And my favorites, you know, as I held up, I have the entire Mafia War series behind me here, but I do still love Ruthless Stranger. And then, I mean, honestly, all of my favorite books by her are in that series. And so my other favorites are Unchosen Ruler, Deviant Hacker, and Relentless Hunter. And yeah, Savage Tracker. Those ones are like my favorites. I love them so much. Outside of that, I do kind of like Club Indulgence, but one of the things I'll say for her books, like, just to tell you, she heavily leans into BDSM. So if you don't really care for BDSM, I think these books will get very sameness to you very quickly. Like, just putting it out there, that happens. Like, it feels like it. And so that's part of the reason too why I kind of slowed down with reading some of hers. Was because it just started to feel a little repetitive in that aspect. But I still stand by to this day. I say it all the time. I absolutely stand by the Mafia Wars as a solid 10-book series, and I love it. And so if you were, though, to start at the very beginning with her, her writing was so different back then. And I think that she really got into eventually kind of like, oh, well, these are the books people want. And that's the only thing she tried to do. And that's kind of where it fell off for me, because it's like the only way you can up the ante from there is to make your heroes meaner and more kind of like intense as you go. And that can get a bit dragging for people. But again, massive backlist. And all of those almost 50 books came out between 2019 and now, which is just insane. Like, way to go, Maggie Cole. Like, I have great things to say. I'm just going through the line. I had these kind of broken up by kind of subgenres when I made the list, and I'm kind of just going through it now because it doesn't really matter. That's the way I have them pulled up on my computer. Okay, another one. And this author's definitely a lot more popular, and most people probably knew that she has a vast backlist, but I still wanted to share just in case people don't, because this is another author who, you know, a certain series took off, and that is the series that everyone knows her for. And, you know, though when this series was coming out, well, I'll just tell you, this is Rina Kent. When her Legacy of the God series was coming out, it was just so smart too, though, because there was so many people who were doing these backlist rereads. Like there was all of those templates going around on Instagram where people were trying to fill in all the spots. And so you realize very quickly how vast her backlist was, for sure. Because yeah, she has 40 plus books in her backlist. And the very first book from her, it appears, let me just double check these before I say it. I believe it was 2019 for her, which is just wild as well. Because I feel like I read Rina Kent for the first time like a while ago, but it actually wasn't. I mean, it was at the beginning of when I was reading a lot of Mafia, but she's just had such a huge volume of books put out. Now, I will say, as I often do with Rina Kent, that I had tried multiple books in the past of hers and they weren't gelling for me at the time. And then I came across a little old book here called God of Malice, and it just blew my socks off. I was just kind of amazed by how wild and epic this book was. And it just checked a lot of boxes for me and I was into it. You know, I was hooked. So this is from her Legacy of the God series, but she goes all the way back, as I said, to 2019. I don't even know if some of these books are still purchasable. Let me see if I can open it somewhere and see if it's still available. I don't think it is. Yeah, it is out of print. This original series from hers is out of print. So that's not a total surprise. She had this series called Team Zero, and that appears to be out of print. So the earliest series from her that you can buy is the Royal Elite series, which starts with Cruel King, which is a prequel and goes through. She has the Lies and Truths duet. She has the Love and Hate duet, which was co-written with Elizabeth Starling. She has the Kingdom duet, the Throne duet, the Deception trilogy, the Thorns duet, the Empire series, Legacy of the God series, the Monster trilogy, and then she's working on the Vipers trilogy, which book 2 of that comes out in December, so coming in less than a month. And I also have one of those here, so I'll show off. We have Beautiful Venom, which I also really enjoyed this one. And then she has the Villain series, which currently only 2 books are announced in that one. We'll have to see how many she writes. This is another series that's a direct spin-off from Legacy of the Gods. And I believe this one will be a fully series. The first book she wrote wasn't until God of Fury in the Legacy of the God series. And now she has written Tempting Venom will be an and then Kiss the Villain and Hunt the Villain will both be But we'll have to see. I mean, she really has something with those for sure. So my favorite books by hers are, of course, I love, oh, I should have grabbed it down. I didn't. I just grabbed the first in a few of the series. I mean, obviously, God of Fury is my most favoritist. That was a 6-star read for me, but I love God of Malice, and I loved Beautiful Venom. I really did. Kiss of the Villain, I enjoyed, but it feels a bit repetitive of certain aspects from the Legacy of the God series, because, again, it is directly connected to that one. There are characters that you literally still have overlapping scenes from some of it. But yeah, Rina Kent, huge backlist. And a lot of people enjoy ones in the back even more than some of the other ones from her. So keep that in mind. Okay, now I have 3 historical authors who are currently still writing today and have big backlists. So first up, I have an author that she has 2 pen names and writes, she mostly still writes under one of these names now, but I will show you both still. So we have Minerva Spencer, aka SM La Violette, okay? And when she writes under Minerva Spencer, she was writing for Zebra, which I think is... What are they called now? Who was that under? Let me pull it up here, actually. Oop. To see who this was with. Come on, who is this with? Kensington Zebra became that. But she had the Outcast series, which had 3 books in it, which then blended into the Rebels of the Ton, which was about the children of the books from this series. And then she had the Wicked Women of Whitechapel. And she does have another series still coming here, which I did not hear about, so don't mind me doing some looking in here. Okay, it doesn't look like anything's come of that one. But I first found Minerva Spencer because of this book cover right here, okay? That is how I found her, all right? I saw this book, I thought it was beautiful, and I ended up reading it, and I thought it was really unique. Again, we're not talking about the topics of the books today. But then there was also Barbarous, which I also thought was beautiful. So I literally bought both of these books from a Barnes & Noble, and that is all that I knew. And I didn't know she had anything else. And then when I was looking for dark historical romances, I came across this series called the Victorian Decadence series, and there was an author named S.M. La Violette. I had no idea these two were the same authors. I really had no clue, no idea at all. It wasn't until I finished this entire book, and not this one. This one was the most recent one. The first one in this series was The Harlot. Yes, The Harlot. And I just thought that one was so naughty and crazy because it really was an erotic romance, and it was just so weird to be reading it in a historical setting. I hadn't read anything like that yet. And then when I got to the very end of the book, she had like her notes on what other books were coming up, and she was talking about the Rebels of the Ton, and I realized that I knew who this author was. And so then I realized that there was this crossover, and there was Minerva Spencer and S.M. La Violette were the same person. So that led me down finding a whole bunch of other books, including finding Melissa and the Vicar, which was the Seducers book 1. And then there was an announcement that she had this other series that was going to be less focused on the erotic side of it and a bit closer to her Minerva Spencer books, but it was being indie published by her because she didn't end up getting picked up for any more books TradPub wise. So she had this series starting, which was the Bellamy series, which is currently still being written, and I enjoy this a whole bunch. And then she had her erotic titles, but these are all under S.M. La Violette, but sometimes she'll say, like, because this one is more closer to her Minerva Spencer titles, she will say Phoebe by Minerva Spencer, but writing as S.M. La Violette. So sometimes she will title these ones that are a little more traditional historical. They'll still have some edgier aspects to them, but they wouldn't maybe shock some people the way like Victorian Decadence would. So she will try to connect those with her Minerva Spencer name. Okay, so all of that, between those two names, she has almost 40 books, because there's 9 that are specifically attributed to Minerva Spencer, where S.M. La Violette isn't mentioned in it all. And then all the rest of them are S.M. La Violette, or they say Minerva Spencer writing as S.M. La Violette. And there are over 30 of those ones. So there's a total of 40 books. And I have read at least one book in nope, okay, I haven't read those ones yet. Oh my gosh, there is also supposed to be a, she's going to be writing a Victorian, like, steampunk series, which she's gotten sidetracked from, which is a bummer, but, like, it's an indie author, and you do things as you have the time to get them out there. But yeah, so I've read one of the Academy of Love. I've read one of the Masqueraders. I've read the entire Seducers. I've read all Victorian Decadence. I've read almost all of the Bellamy sisters. Catherine just came out, so I haven't read Catherine yet. And I've read Balthazar the Spare, but not Io the Shrew. So I've read a fair amount of her books. I love them. They have that right amount of, like, historical fantasy to them almost. And by that I mean, like, the way sometimes you wish the world worked. She is very sex positive in a lot of her books. A lot of them, not even just the Victorian Decadent, a lot of her books involve sex workers and a very like positive and honest thoughts on sex work and the time, which I really enjoy. But my favorite ones from her are these ones that I grabbed here and was showing off. I absolutely love Melissa and the Vicar, which is actually a madam who falls in love with a vicar. Because she is ill, and so she takes a break from her debaucherous ways. Her villain, this one involves like a literal psychopath who falls in love with a sex worker. And then I love Dangerous and Barbarous under her other name. And then I love the Bellamy sisters, so I just love hers. And she's an author that I continually think doesn't get enough attention, like truly. And that's why I wanted to bring her up in this one, because she has so many books to choose from and they just don't get enough love. Okay, they just don't get enough love. So one of the things I always say, and I will continue to say it, is that as historical romance starts to get cut from our trad pub places, we have to be willing to go other places to find them. And if you're like me, which I know a lot of you are, I haven't really been enjoying what was coming from trad pub lately anyway. There's very few authors where I've been enjoying what they put out anyway. And Minerva Spencer is one who, ever since I discovered her backlist of titles and the way she was willing to tell a story, I was just so excited for it. I'll also say she has audiobooks for almost all of her titles. So if you're someone who needs audio, and I particularly love audio for historical romances, she has audio for almost all of those. So that is her. Okay, another author is Grace Callaway, and she actually grew up in Canada, which is so cool, and she definitely has still some pretty sexy historicals, but they're also still a bit more traditional than Minerva Spencer was, but they're so fun. Where do I have a few of her books at here? Did I just grab one? I might have just grabbed one. But yeah. She is so much fun. This one is, which number in the series is this one? I thought I grabbed number 1. Maybe I didn't. Game of Dukes. Yes. The Duke, the Return of, oh, this one's like book 5. I don't have the first one in this one. But she first started writing way back in 2011, Grace Callaway did. So, much like Sower Pays, I forgot to tell you when Minerva Spencer started writing. I didn't, read that one down here, but Grace Callaway's been putting these out since 2011 with her series Mayhem in Mayfair, which I have read all 4 of those ones. I've also read 2 of the Hearts of Iniquity, and I've read, I think those are the ones that I've read. So this is an author where I haven't read a ton of hers, but I just think they're so fun. She's still putting out covers that look like historical romances, and she is actually, as I said, still writing as well. She has her current series is The Blackwoods, which I believe probably spun off from these others. Like, she writes a lot of spy and espionage, I should say that. She writes a lot of made men, so there's a lot of fun stuff in here with hers. Which one did I just read? Because I just read one that I did. Yes. Regarding the Duke. I knew I read one of these. I just read one of these for my Patreon, which was a Marriage in Trouble. And it was a hero who ends up with amnesia regarding the Duke. I really loved that one. That's going to be one of my favorites that I mentioned. I enjoyed that one a whole bunch. But I have read the entire Mayhem in Mayfair. And then one of the Hearts of Iniquity. And then, yeah, the Game of Dukes. And then Lady Charlotte's Society of Angels. So this is supposed to be like Charlie's Angels. And that was the series that was coming out when I was trying to catch up on some of her books. And that looks like that entire series is out now. So I need to grab those on audio and get to those. Olivia and the Masked Duke was the first one in that series. And then, which is so fun because there's like Olivia and the Masked Duke, Pippa and the Prince of Secrets, Fiona and the Enigmatic Earl, Glory and the Master of Shadows, and then Charlotte and the Seductive Spy Master, which that must be Lady Charlotte at the end. Then, yes, her current series coming out is The Blackwoods, and the one that is set to come out in 2026 is Three Chances to Cherish. So an author who's still writing. She is an indie author primarily. So this is an author, like that's the thing. This is an author who's been pumping out the books. I think she might have been with an indie publisher when she did Mayhem in Mayfair, because again, I used to own copies of those ones. I don't anymore, but when I did, and I think that she was published with one of the indie publishers, but still an indie author. And yeah, so much fun and definitely deserves some love. So I'll have links to some of hers below. And as I said, my favorite ones would probably be, I mean, I really loved Her Husband's Harlot. Again, I'm not going into what the books are about, but that one was an interesting setup. And I really loved Regarding the Duke, which was the one that I just read for Patreon. Okay, and then one more historical author to mention, and this one I just had to because I think people forget how vast her backlist is. And I believe it looks like she started writing in 2014. So over 10 years she's been writing. This is an author who has done both trad pub, indie pub, and indie published. And it actually has started her own indie publishing with her husband now, which is super cool. Her sister is also a historical romance author as well. And she does also have a few different subgenres she's written under, and I grabbed a couple because there is some paranormal, which I own a few of but have not tried reading yet myself, and I definitely should. And this is, I should say her name, Stacy Reid. Okay, Stacy Reid's been writing since 2014 with The Duke's Shotgun Wedding, and that was with the Scandalous House of Leiden. Then there was, as I mentioned, the paranormal series here, and actually, like I said, I own book 1. And this is the Amigarians, Eternal Darkness. So I'm so glad actually that I pulled this up because I really want to try this. My friend Tiffany gifted me the first couple books in the series. But that's so cool. So yeah, she has like a paranormal series too. And I don't even know what type of beings these are. If they're dragons. It kind of looks like dragons. But maybe he's like a naga or something because his scales are all wrapped all the way around her. It's like a tail. I don't know. But anyway, she has this series as well. But then she had the Wedded by Scandal series, which one of my favorite ones is in When the Earl Met His Match. Love it, love it. She has the Forever Yours series, which has, I believe is like all novellas though. And there's 12 of them. She has the Kincaids, which are historical like westerns. She has the Rebellious Desires duet. She has the Sinful Wallflowers, which that's the one that a lot of people know her from with My Darling Duke, which I feel like a lot of people thought was her first one because I believe that kicked off her trad pub books with My Darling Duke, and that was in 2019. But she'd been writing for 5 years before then, which is amazing. Then there is the Sins and Sensibility series, which this is a series that she started in 2019, but is now like just finishing off. So there's the Scandalous Diary of Lily Layton which was written in 2019, but then the rest of the books have been put out in 24 and 25, which is interesting. There's the Seasons of Love trilogy. There's the Unforgettable Love, which are her most recent trad pub books. There was A Matter of Temptation, which I loved, and An Earl to Remember. And then she has a few books where she was in collections and novellas and things like that. So she just had so many books to choose from. She has over 50. And my very favorites are, as I mentioned, When the Earl Met His Match. I also absolutely love A Matter of Temptation. I do also love My Darling Duke. That one involves a hero with a disability in that one. And let's see, what else in that one series? There's another one I love too. I mean, The Duke's Shotgun Wedding is fun too, because the lady threatens him with a gun, which is fun. And those ones are all pretty short. So those are the Stacy Reids that I have to recommend. And I will also say this, my prayers and love are absolutely with Stacy. She has always struggled with some health issues, but lately I believe there's been a pretty serious diagnosis for her. So I don't know how that's going. She's very obviously private and keeps to herself with that. And so a lot of the books that have been being released by her, I believe they were like previously written ones, like that series that's coming out. But I wish her the absolute best. I love that woman. I interviewed her on my channel, actually. It's one of my favorite interviews I've done. She's just such a kind woman, and she's a huge fan of romance herself, which of course, so many authors are, but I mean the fan in the way that when you talk to her, she wants to gossip more about other people's books and talk than about her own. And I just love that. So those are 3 historicals. Okay, now I have 4 contemporary authors to share about. And first off, I of course, you guys know I have to do this. I have to toot the horn of my wonderful author, Noelle Adams, aka Claire Kent, because when making a video about authors who have very large backlists, I would like you to know that not only is it the 13th publishing anniversary for her this month, but she has written over 100 novels and novellas together. And I just think that is such a feat. Alone under the Noelle Adams name, she has over 100. And then the Claire Kent name, which is mostly all dystopian and dark, we'll talk about those ones in a second. She has almost 40 Claire Kent books. And I believe by next year she will have about 40 under that name as well. But yeah, she's been writing since 2012, or publishing since 2012. And the very first one she ever did was One Night with Her Best Friend. And there's 6 novellas in this series. Well, even a few more. I think there's technically like 8 that get slated into this. But they're more so connected just by the name and a bunch of novellas and things like that. But let's go through the series. Okay, let's go through the series. There's the One Night novellas. There's the Negotiated Marriage trilogy. There's the Heirs of Damon. There's the Willow Park series. There's the Convenient Marriages series. There's the Protectors, which were written with Samantha Chase. There's the Beaufort Brides. There's Eden Manor, Preston's Mill, also with Samantha Chase. The Rothman Royals. The Balm of Gilead. Tea for Two series. Second Best. One Fairy Tale Wedding. The Loft series, the Trophy Husband series, Holiday Acres series, which is a bunch of novellas there, Pemberley House, books that are inspired by Jane Austen, by the way, Milford College, The Second Chance Flower Shop, Companions for Hire, Bad Bridemaids, The Magnusons, Coble Coffee, Green Valley, and The Worthings. Those are all of just the series. Then she has a list of, which I won't list, of about 10 that are just solely standalones as well. So this woman is ridiculously prolific in the fact that she just does not give up and just keeps writing, and it's amazing. And again, I work for her, so take that for what you will, but when I was making a list of authors with big backlists, I have to bring her up. So those are the Noelle Adams titles, or I mean the series, I should say. She also has a book that she just released, which I think is very insightful for anyone who's into writing themselves, where she wrote a book about writing invisible, is literally what it's called. And it's how she was able to push through and continue writing for all these years, even without seeing certain levels of success until more recently. But she was still able to make multi-millions of dollars off of her books over 13 years just by plugging along and doing what she does, and I think it's amazing. So of the Noelle Adams books, now one thing I've been doing since I've been working for her for this whole year is I don't tell you the ratings of what I rate any of her books, but what I'm going to tell you now is a few of my favorites of the Noelle Adams books that I have read now, because I will tell you, before I worked for her, I'd only read, I think, 8 of the Noelle Adams titles. I had read pretty much all of the Claire Kent ones except for a few of the standalones, which I still have a few more I haven't read yet. But I hadn't read a lot of the Noelle Adams titles because that's not where I knew her from Last Light and for those. But now having read more of hers, a few of my favorites are, I really love Salvation, which is one of the standalones for her. This one is actually about a woman who gets assaulted in the beginning, and it's her mental health and trying to push through and move on from that. I also really, really enjoyed, let me find it on here, the Worthings series, which is these 4 family members. There's Recollection, Replacement, Redemption, and Restoration. And each one of those does kind of focus more on like a trope as the inspiration. Like number 1 was amnesia and a really big age gap. Number 2, The Replacement. That one is a twin swap story. Number 3 is a bodyguard with a partying kind of playgirl in that one. And then number 4 is actually a shipwreck one. And I just really enjoyed those 4 a lot. But honestly, her books are all so solid. She has this writing style that is completely unique. And while she really doesn't get much critical acclaim or any of that, she's writing for her readers. And that's why she's able to continue to be successful in the way she is. So those are the Noelle Adams titles. Now, what a lot of you love so much, and me too, is her Claire Kent titles, which are really honestly what I think has boosted her the most in recent years. And that is, of course, Last Light, which is one of her best-selling novels that she's had. It came out, you know, almost a full decade after some of her other books, so it's not her most money-making book as of yet, but it will be someday. This is the special edition of Last Light. It is still available on her website, by the way. Lovely, lovely copies of these. But the series that you probably know her for most are, of course, Last Light / the Kindled series, which, you know, this is technically a standalone, but it is fully connected with it. There's crossover characters and everything, but this one is a full-length, fully told. It could be a standalone story if you'd like to. And then we have the Kindled series, which I have everything stacked up here. I just love them. Which begins with Haven, which is a short one. And then there's 8 books in that series. Then she's currently working on the Central Cities books, which are a series that spins off of the Kindled series but takes place 40 years in the future and features some children from the Kindled series. Only Devotion is out so far, but Service will be coming at the beginning of next year. There is her new series she's writing, which also takes place during the Kindled world, and that is the Post-Apocalyptic Fairy Tales, which I'm literally waiting for Ashes, which will be the Cinderella-inspired one, to get dropped on my Kindle anytime in the next couple days, and I'm a very excited assistant, I will tell you that. Other than that, there's the Hold series by her, which is 4 books that are actually kind of like sci-fi and take place on different planets. And then the others are mostly just, like, they're listed as series sometimes, but they're like a standalone book and then a novella that came with it, right? Like there's Escorted, which was her very first Claire Kent story. There is Nameless. There is then a bunch of other standalone she has as well, which is really cool. So of the Claire Kent books, I've mentioned this many times, Last Light is always going to be a favorite. I also love Embers and Homestead, and Sanctuary too. Oh, I love so many of the books in Kindle. And then I really did love Tower so much. Like, look at that beautiful book just hanging out back there. I just really thought that one was so fun and just fit in with everything so well. So those are my favorite ones under the Claire Kent name. Okay, this video is already taking a very long time. I didn't mean it to. So let us crank it up a bit here for a few of these last ones here. So another contemporary author that has a ton is Melanie Harlow. And this is actually an author that I have done a deep dive video for her. So if you want more information on all of the books in her backlist, of which I have read almost all, this is one of the authors that there's just a few I haven't read. But I think the After We Fall series, Speakeasy Duet, and her books with Corinne Michaels are the only ones I haven't read. I've read all the rest. So if you want to check out my Melanie Harlow deep dive, you can. She has over 30 books. Best well known, I feel like, for the Cloverleaf Farm series, which this is the very first book of hers that I read. This one is a single dad of 3 daughters and his boss's daughter who becomes the nanny for his kids. There is this is also in the Cloverleaf Farm series, but this is the second generation one. I really love Tempt as well. The series that she went trad pub with, which was Cherry Tree Harbor. So Runaway Love was the first one in that one. And then she has Heart's Landing, which will be coming up in May of next year, I think it says. Yes, May of next year. So my favorite books from her are these ones that I held up, of course. These two right here. I just love these. Her books are pretty much all set in like small towns and are very like family oriented, and they all kind of like fit together in a lot of ways. One in Only Love is part of the One and Only series, and Only Love is also one of my favorites as well. So lots to choose from her. I believe she's all in KU with these as well, so very bingeable for sure. Okay, another author I love is Melanie Moreland, who has over 45 books that she has been writing for. When was her very first one? Wow, it looks like in 2016 is when The Contract came out. She recently got a pub deal with Waterhorse, and so some of her older books have been being re-released as well. But the first book that I remember reading by her was actually Revved to the Max, which isn't an MC romance, even though all of the guys like kind of drive motorcycles. It's actually book 1 in the Reynolds Restoration series, and Max is a grumpy like car restorer and mechanic, and he ends up with this woman, Charlie, as his like office manager. But when he hires a Charlie, he thinks he's hired a man, only to have this beautiful bombshell show up and get this job. And he actually, I believe, has a one-night stand with her the night before learning who she is. So things get a little bit awkward when she shows up the next day. But anywho, I wasn't supposed to talk about that. So there's the Contract series, which is all about one couple, I believe. There's the Vested Interest series, Reynolds Restoration. There's the ABC Corp. There's the Men of Hidden Justice. There's the My Favorite series. This one's definitely rom-coms and very fun. There's the Men of the Falls, which is Mafia, but I call this series Mafia Light, is how I always kind of sell it to people. And then there is also The Irishman, which spins off of the Men of the Falls, and that is literally Irish Mafia as well. And then she has a whole bunch of standalones and a lot of collections that she's been a part of. So definitely a lot to choose from with her. She specializes in romance, romantic suspense, and she has a historical romance coming that she is co-written with Scarlett Scott that actually comes out this month, which is so fun. Now, I'm actually on her review team, and I have been for a little while, and I didn't end up signing up for Made for the Marquess because, like, I just have too many other books to get to in November that I couldn't get to that one. But I do plan to read it for sure. I'll get the audiobook because her audios are always just so, so good. So I really, really enjoy the ones I showed you. I really love Rev to the Max. This one is so fun. This series is definitely more rom-com-y than some of her other books are as well. I love the Irishman duet a whole bunch, and really recently I love the My Favorite series. So the first one in this is actually My Favorite Kidnapper, which is funny. And she even says that when she wrote that one, it was supposed to be a darker book, more along the lines of like the Men of the Falls. But as she started writing it, there was just so much like sarcasm and humor to the hero who had kidnapped the heroine that she just was like, you know what, this is going to be a comedy. Even though he's kidnapped her, it's going to be sweet. And that led kind of to this series of books where she did My Favorite Kidnapper, My Favorite Boss, now My Favorite Hero. This is just really fun. And then she ended up writing these Mafia books, which I also love. And they're a great, as I said, kind of intro to the Mafia without being too dark. Okay. And then I wanted to mention, this is another author that I really want to read more of her backlist because I haven't read a ton, but she has over 35 books. And this is Corinne Michaels, who has been writing since it appears to be 2014, so about a decade for her. She has the Salvation series, the Return to Me series, Second Time Around. She has the Imperfect Match series, which she wrote with Melanie Harlow, the Arrowwood Brothers, the Willow Creek Valley, Rose Canyon, Whitlock Family, which that is where I really fell for her with Forbidden Hearts, which I had read like 2 of her older books. I'd read like 2 of her older books, but this is the one that I really fell for with that. The Ember Falls series, which still has 1 book to come. And then Heartstone Ranch, which will be starting next year and is going to be a cowboy series, which is just great. And so the books of hers that it was the Second Time Around series. I read those way back when there was still Audible Escape. I bring that up now and then, which was basically only focused on romance novels, and those books were in there. And so I listened to those. And then I just never read, did she have a standalone? Oh, maybe I'm wrong here. I thought there was a standalone of hers that I also read, but I could be wrong. But anyway, my favorites of hers are, I really love Forbidden Hearts. And then I also loved what was the most recent one? Against All Odds, which was a Not His Baby, but it also was a Not His Baby, but it also was a like second chance because they were together when they were young. So yeah, those ones. Yeah, I actually have like one of her very first books. I didn't know I got this one off of a used website because I wanted to read more of her backlist, but I haven't got to it yet, so I haven't read that one. But yeah, I love Against All Odds and Forbidden Hearts, and yeah, love her books so much. Okay, then I had just a little category at the end that I called Other, which turns out that they're mostly like, I don't know, they're like paranormal fantasy, but I picked 2 authors to put in this one. And again, if you like this video, not only please subscribe to this channel because it lets YouTube know that you like what I do here. But let me know if you want me to do another video like this where I do another group of authors, because maybe then next time I will drill down a little bit more on like a specific subgenre or something. But I wanted to pick Tiffany Roberts. They have over 30 books. And like many people, I had read a few of their books way back when I got into monster romance, okay? So back when I was reading like Ice Planet Barbarians, I read a few of their, I read books 1 and 2 in their, what's it called? In their Kraken series. And I just thought those were a little bit weird. Those were just a little too weird for me at the time. I thought I was too good for that or whatever. But that is when I'd heard of them. So when they went wild and put out Ensnared, I was like, okay, I'm going to read this and I'm going to laugh at it, okay? The joke was on me because I adore this, and it's still one of my favorite monster romances to this day, okay? Adore this trilogy. But they also have many other series and backlist ones. There's also some of these like shorter, darker ones that they have. But I just love to see it so much. So they have the Isle of the Forgotten. They have the Kraken. They have the Cursed Ones, which that's what one of this ones is from. The Infinite City series, which I've read, loved. They have the Aliens Among Us, which I think I've read book 1. There's the Spider's Mate, which is the Ensnared. The Vrix series, which is currently coming out, which I know I'm behind on that series. I want to get to the Weaver before the end of the year, but I'm also waiting for the audiobook. And it appears that it may be until next year before we get the audio for that. So I don't know what's going to happen. But then they have some standalone novels as well. And then they've been a part of quite a few different like anthologies and things. Like there was the Venice Needs Men, which were dragon ones, cosmic fairy tales, and a few other ones as well. So they have a real vast array of books. My favorites, of course, is always going to be Ensnared. This trilogy I love so, so much. And I also love The Infinite City. My favorite one being Untamed Hunger, which is a not his baby. And also she was being kept prisoner by a bad guy, and our hero rescues her. And then she repays him by taking his gun, and I think she shoots him and runs away. Very fierce lady. And then the last author I want to mention in this one with a big backlist, because I think her backlist gets forgotten so often. And this is an author that I've read almost every one of her backlist as well. And that is Juliet Cross, right? Friend of the channel, absolute delight. We love her so much. She's the bestest. And she honestly is making it in the big time now, and I couldn't be happier, because she actually used to be with an indie press and she got kind of screwed over with them. But her very first book released 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, and was the Nightwing trilogy, and the book one was Soulfire. Then there was the Vessel trilogy, which she actually recently re-released with new covers and added some spicy scenes to those. Veil of Stars, which are basically dragon romance. Dominion series, which I have not read those ones. The Vampire Blood series, which are fairy tale vampire retellings. Have read those, love those. Of course, our Stay a Spell series, delightful. The Beauville series, which there's only a book and a novella in that one currently, but that's a contemporary, no magic of any kind in that one. There is The Rise of the North Gull, which is currently coming out. She just had The Beast Lord come out. I haven't read that yet. I just barely started it the other day because life has been hectic, but very, very good. Southern Charm, which is a spin-off series from Stay a Spell. The Fire That Binds, which has Firebird and the upcoming Blood Singer in it. And then the Green Valley Hero series, which she actually contributed to that series with Penny Reed's group. And she has Parks and Provocation and Peaches and Dreams were a part of that series. She is just an absolute delight. I love her so much. I've been very close with her for many years now. My favorite books by her is always going to be the Stay a Spell series, truly specifically books 5 and 6. I really, really love those. From outside of that, I really enjoy the Vampire Blood series, which just does not get enough attention. And vampires are back in, everyone. You need to read them. Specifically, the one I like best is probably which one is she? White Lily, I think, is the Snow White kind of style one. Really like that one. And then I really enjoyed Firebird. I can't wait to read Bloodsinger. I think that one's going to be amazing. So, highly, highly recommend you give some of her books a try. She's amazing. And again, most of them all have magic in them, right? Only the Green Valley ones and the Beaufort don't have any magic in them. All the rest of them do. But she has a range of kind of low paranormal, which is what I would kind of consider the Stay a Spell, and then very high fantasy version in Firebird or the Wraith King, which is literally a Wraith King and Fae lady getting married, lots of stuff there. So okay, I've been talking for way too long, but those are some authors that are still writing today that have very big backlists. So if you're looking for some bingeable authors where you can just sweep through the backlist, those are some of the authors for you. So thank you so much for watching, friends. Please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hype this video if you know how. And